Hey, welcome back to another rep. My name is Steve Hagan. I'm down at IMG where everybody's playing tennis all day long, all week long, 24/7. It's awesome. But today's show, I have a good friend, Kris Durham. I'm just going to let him tell you the story. It's awesome. He lives he actually lives in France and works in London. What? Go ahead. Dial into this. Hit subscribe, hit like, tell your friends, tell your people. Let's go get another rep with Kris. Let's go.
I'm so excited. Hey, man, welcome back to another rep. I'm Coach Hagan. I have Kris Durham here. Bulldogs, go Dogs. That's right.
There we go. Go
Two
Dogs.
national championships. Did you win one when you were there?
Oh, and we won a Sugar Bowl. I mean, we ended up number 2 in the country. I don't know if that counts as quite the victory compared to
So no.
how Coach Smart has these guys playing, but I'm pretty proud of it.
Absolutely. That's so fun. You played with Matthew Stafford over there, so that's super cool.
Yeah.
Hey, this is super cool because I'm at IMG in Bradenton, Florida with Kris, all right? And we're doing this podcast down here, and we have 13 international players, and they're from everywhere. And Kris is a big reason why they're here. There's a couple other guys that we'll get on the show as well that are the reason they're here as well. But tonight we have Kris, and I'm just so excited, Kris. Welcome to another rep. This is super fun.
Oh, yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, especially a lot of these guys, I got to know them, whether it was in our camp in Ghana or the one in London. And then I've even Australia to work out with, Pat, EJ, and Tali. Like, I've kind of been all over the world to help, have an impact on some. And ran into Marlon in Germany at a youth U19 event. So it's been quite the journey.
Jeez. Okay, we're not there yet. Don't. That's you just put a spoiler out there. But man, let's go back and tell everybody a little bit about your story. And you grew up around Rome, Georgia, and how you got to Georgia. You played at Georgia. We already said you played with Matthew Stafford. Maybe we can get him on another rep one day. And then how you got to where the heck you are now. Another fun thing that you and I did separately together was I coached in Italy and you played in Italy. So we're going to get to that too. So let's go back to where you grew up.
There's a bit of a story about the whole Italy thing, how I found out about it, how I ended up there. We can get into that.
Oh, nuts, man. So let's go back. So you're a big time athlete in Georgia and they recruit you. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It was kind of my childhood dream. My dad ran track at Georgia. He was a decathlete. So I grew up Georgia fan. My mom's brother went to Clemson, so there's a little bit of a rivalry there. But when I was doing the recruiting thing, I wasn't a big recruit. I was, kind of a small recruit. I had a couple different offers, not too many, 4 or 5. I knew Georgia was a place I wanted to go. Kind of runner up to that was Clemson, and then Auburn. And so, funnily enough, I went down to Georgia over my spring break, my junior year. Coach Rick pulls me into his office, offers. I go home, tell my hometown coach, my head coach for high school, hey, this is where I'm going. We called Coach Bobo and Coach Rick the next morning. I committed. I was done. There was no hat pulling. There was no anything. It was just, hey, I'll be there in December or January. That was before all this mid-year enrollee stuff was really a big thing. But I knew that's where I wanted to go. I wasn't scared of the competition. I actually wanted it. They were defending SEC champs. Didn't care. I wanted to go there. I wanted to compete.
Nice. Were you 6'6"? Like you're 6'6" now. Were you 6'6" then?
So I hit my growth spurt probably freshman year of high school. I was about 5'8" in 8th grade. 9th grade, I was about 6'2", and then I was about 6'4", 6'5", but I was skinny. I'm skinny now too compared to when I played, but coming out of high school, I was probably 185 pounds. Then when I got to the NFL, I was about 220. But yeah, it's very small, skinny, lanky. Could still run a little bit, but yeah, very lanky.
I'll get some highlights of you and I'll mix them in this video.
I don't know if we need some of those.
Hey, we just watched a highlight of you playing tonight against Dallas, and you caught like big time catch down the sideline to close out a game, and I'll get that highlight on there too.
Yeah, Well,
So
let's
you
give credit where credit's due. Matthew rolled right and just put one on the line.
Hey,
I had an
this
easy
ain't
job.
about him tonight. It's about you. You get to say, "Hey, thanks, coach."
Yeah.
So, so you go through Georgia, and obviously you're good enough that Seattle drafts you. Let's talk about that day and talk about the lead up to that and all that.
So I finished up. I did the victory lap. Had a red shirted going into my fourth year at Georgia. So injured my shoulder in spring practice. So redshirted my senior year. Came back for my fifth year. As I was coming out, there was a receiver, AJ Green, was coming out as well. So playing opposite of AJ, obviously there's a lot of eyes on him as he was a top 5 pick. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get at least somebody's going to watch because here's this guy, top pick in the draft. So I knew everything he did, I wanted to do better. So if AJ ran a 4.45, I wanted to be 4.44. If he did 16 reps on the bench, I wanted to do 17. So everything he did, I wanted a little bit better. Fortunately, I was able to, but obviously haven't had the career that he is. I mean, the guy has crazy body control and hands and all of that. But that was just my mentality for the whole thing. Seattle took a risk. They drafted me. Very thankful for that. Had a decent little time in Seattle before I headed on to a new team after getting released. But yeah, forever grateful for that experience. Spent it with that day I was watching it. Kind of funny, but so that morning I didn't watch because it was day 3. And I was like, I thought I was going to go in the 5th round and I did not sleep the night before. I'm sitting there and I was like, hey mom, like, let's go do something. Her birthday was the next week. So we went and she got her nails done. And I was just like, okay, let's get out of the house. And then I wanted to go by like my uncle's house because they all lived in the same town that I grew up in. So we'd swing by like one of her brother's house. He wasn't at home. Go by her other brother's house. He's not at home. I was like, where is everyone? So then I was like, I guess we just go home. And so as we pull in, I see that my mom's younger brother, the one that played at Clemson, was at my house. His car was there. We walk in, day 3's already started. They're on like the 3rd pick or 4th pick of the day. So I was like, okay, I saw a guy, Clint Bowling, I played with at Georgia. He got drafted by Cincinnati right there. He's like the 3rd pick of the day. I was like, oh, that's great. 2 picks later, a guy named Luke Stalker, who I trained with coming out at D1, a tight end out of Tennessee. He gets drafted. I was like, oh, there's back-to-back guys that I know. I was like, this is crazy. Like I trained with both Clint and Luke at the place we trained at in Nashville. It's called D1, right outside of Nashville. And it was kind of like, oh, this is great. And then, of course, there's like 5 or 6 minutes between picks. Couch. I was like, well, I didn't sleep much last night. So I lay down, I put my phone on my chest, and I was like, well, I'm just going to turn it on ring in case somebody calls and I'm asleep or whatever. Because again, I'm thinking 5th round. I was like, 5th round's kind of, I'll go somewhere between 5th and 6th is kind of what I was hearing. You never know. I could be undrafted. You never know what happens. So as soon as I put the phone on ring, I sit it back down on my chest. It starts going off. I see the area code. I don't recognize it. I answer it. And it's John Schneider. John Schneider's the general manager for the Seahawks, and he was speaking with me, and I don't know what happened, but I guess the phone cut out at some point when we were speaking because he asked me. He goes, "Hey, you're from Georgia. Do you have an issue with coming all the way to Seattle?" And of course, I'm like, "No, of course not. Like, why would I have no." Well, I guess the phone cut out at that moment because he goes, "Oh, well, if you have an issue with it, we'll just wait and draft you in the next round." And I turned around and said to him, "Well, I won't be there then." And that was, and so that was my answer to him as soon as he said that. And next thing you know, he was like, "Send the pick in," and they handed the phone to Pete. And so I talked to Coach Carroll there for a little bit, and that was kind of my draft day story. And then that afternoon, I went and watched my mom's brother, his kids. One of them had a little league baseball game. So I went and watched. That's what I did. Funnily enough, my uncle's son, one of them is actually the one who I went to watch play baseball. He actually plays for the Buffalo Bills right now. He was the 7th round pick.
Greg, you got athletes all through your whole family tree.
And then
What the heck?
No, he's a linebacker, Baylon Spector, and then his little brother's a receiver on Clemson's team right now. So yeah, that's the family tree. That's my mom's side, and then my dad's side. Obviously me.
You guys are rolling, man. That's
Hey,
awesome.
brother-in-law, my sister's husband played in the MLB for about 8 years.
What the heck? That's so
Hey,
cool.
yeah, yeah.
That is so cool.
So
So then you play in the NFL. You played for Seattle. Who else did you play for?
Detroit for a few years. Had a year in Tennessee, and then a little coffee stop a little pit stop there in Oakland before I got released at the end of training camp. That was kind of phone stopped ringing at that point.
Okay, and then what happens? Italy.
Ah, so yeah, I made I was like, hey, if I don't get a call from an NFL team for a workout or whatever by Christmas, I'm done. I'm traveling. Christmas comes. I'd actually gone down to the Georgia Florida game in Jacksonville. My college roommate was from Jacksonville, played for the Jags.
Yeah, you got to go to the biggest little cocktail
So
party or
yeah,
whatever.
so I was like, I'm going to the game.
Yeah.
So while I was there, I was like, hey man, this is around Halloween. I was like, it's November. If I don't get a call in the next 6 weeks, like like I'm done. Like I've done the journeyman thing. I've gone up and down, done all of it. I was like, I'm done. So made the deal with myself. I
You
took a
thought you were
flight.
done.
I I I took a flight on December the 20th or 30th, and I'd always wanted to travel the world. And my family and I, we'd never really had the opportunity to. I got on a plane. I went to Europe by myself. Ended up didn't know anyone, no one. Went to London to start, spent New Year's there, met a bunch of people, ended up traveling around Europe with like a group of guys, and just traveled around while I was there. I got a phone call from a guy named Ugo Bonvicini. Ugo called me, happened to be in Italy at that moment, and I was actually traveling from, crazy enough, I was in Florence. I'd gone up to Cinque Terre. And so
Oh,
that's where I was going when I got the call. And I told him, I was like, hey, look, like I just told myself I'm done. He was like, are you sure you don't want to play this year? I was like, call me and maybe next year and da da da. Well, that planted the seed in my head. And not to go too much into Italy until but yeah, he called my bluff. He called me right after the season, said, this is how our season went. This is the receiver we brought. Here's his stats. We'd love to have you next year. And I was like, great. Call me in October. We'll talk about it. He called me in October. I was like, okay, like I'm very interested. Let me think about it for a few weeks. He called me again right around Thanksgiving. It was like, hey, I need to know, or if we're going to recruit somebody else. So that was
because their season is in the spring.
yes, yeah. So their spring season, like most of Europe, due to like the NFL Europe, kind
Yeah.
of set the path for that. So all of Europe's pretty much there. So that's I was, he called me back in November. I was sitting in either Vienna or Prague. And when he called, I was like, why not? Like I still had the fire to burn. It had been almost a year since I'd been released. I'd had offers to go to Canada and do this, and I actually spoke with your brother about that.
Yeah.
Uh, I'd called Mike and I was like, hey, should I do this? And he talked to me and gave me some good advice, decided against it. I had the fire still burn. Always wanted to play till I was 30. I was 29. I was like, you know what? This will get me to my goal. Let's do it. And then I actually ended up playing for 2 years.
Very cool. And you played for the
Parma Panthers.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Famed by the John Grisham novel,
Yeah.
Playing for Pizza.
Playing for Pizza. If you haven't read Playing for Pizza, whoever you are out there, read it because Kris was living it. I lived it a little bit. I was living in Florence. He was living in the actual place where Playing for Pizza was written about.
Oh, yeah.
And you could have replaced the characters in that book with you and your boys on the team. I mean, it hasn't changed much.
No, it definitely hasn't changed. Maybe some of the rules for Americans or this or that, some of the nuances change. But crazy enough, I read that book, Playing for Pizza, in 2012. I was playing for the Detroit Lions at the time. Matthew Stafford gave me the book.
Really?
And we joked about it back then because I was actually living when I got cut from Seattle, I signed with Detroit. I was on the practice squad. So Matthew and I being roommates in college, knowing each other since we were 17 years old, he has this, pretty nice house that has an extra bedroom or two. So he was like, hey, while you're doing this, like you can live with me. So I moved in with his then girlfriend, now wife, Kelly, had moved up there. And our other roommate from college had gotten cut by the Cowboys, and he signed with Detroit the same day. So we both moved into Matthew's basement, and Kelly was literally our like frat house mom. And so yeah, so that's
He's like, Matthew,
yeah.
how long are your boys going to be living with us?
That's pretty much what happened. We got the season out, so she let us stay there for the season. But it was pretty fun. It's kind of crazy that the guy that you live with in college, which Matthew lived with both Shauna and I, and then fast forward 4 years later, we're playing in the NFL together on the same team, living together. And we have pictures of us on the field in Athens, Georgia, Sanford Stadium in a huddle. And then fast forward in Detroit, 2012, we're all in the same huddle playing with each other.
Hey, let's talk a little bit about your Italy experience. Not the football. Everybody knows football is, it is what it is. But what was fun about like living in Italy and what was so different? I know what it was like, but tell everybody else.
So for me, I was a bit jaded on the NFL experience due to being released, sometimes deservingly, sometimes not deservingly. There's numbers game, there's injuries, there's people owed money, there's all of that, business side of it. People look at it as the dream, and yes, it is a dream. You're playing a game for a living. It's a beautiful sport. It's all of that. But at times it gets a bit difficult as you go across the country and you pick up and you play one game on Thursday night, and 2 days later you're playing for a different team. It's a crazy experience. Oh, exactly. But going to Italy was something that, looking back, it was something that I didn't know what I was searching for. And it gave me more than what I could have ever imagined. I thought I was going to go over there and play football. I was like, oh, I'm going to go have a paid vacation. I'm going to go play football. I'm going to, live in Italy for 5 months and just eat pasta and drink wine and do whatever, and just, obviously I was like, my talent and I can, do all that. Well, I got to meet a group of guys that are from a different background, different culture, different language, different everything. And I was able to relate to them and to see intimately how they live, how they interact, all because of this sport that I had grown up playing and played at a very high level, that they were not being paid. I was being paid. The only way I was being, because these guys paid to play.
Yeah.
And so that's how I was there. And, they're picking me up from the airport. They're inviting me over so that their mom, their grandma, or themselves, like, can eat. We're having out after the games, you see guys smoking cigarettes, drinking beers and pads, and like talking about each other. And all they do is talk trash and about anything and everything. And you're just sitting there and you're invited into this culture where it's a very, very family oriented. And the American football, and again, you have to say American football,
right.
For that, the community is so small that everyone knows each other. And
it's
so
a fraternity.
Even after the game, like if we played in Milan or Firenze or like wherever we played, you would go and have a beer with the other team or before you get on the bus and leave.
I have to tell my guys, hey, we're not having a beer with them before the game. After the game, we do whatever you want. But they'd see their boys coming off the bus and they'd be like, it was like, what the fuck? It was awesome, but it was crazy.
But that was such a cool experience because you only practice 2 or 3 days a week at midnight or whatever. And so
true.
And so you have all day. And so it was just crazy because I tell guys now, because I still help Parma recruit and do a lot of different things. And I'm like, you need to come there with some kind of habit or some kind of like something you want to do, studying, school, traveling, you need something besides football, because football does not take up a lot of your time. There's only so much film you can watch. There's only so much practice you can have. So it was just yeah, it was just one of those things where I didn't know what I was searching for, and I found it, including love. My my partner's Italian, been together 6 years now, live together in France and do all of that. And
We're
so
going to get to that here in a second. That's awesome.
I still go back to Parma though all the time. We spent Christmas there because she's from there, born and raised. So I still have a lot of love, a lot of, just
deep
love the city.
ties.
Deep ties. I could easily see myself living there. Like, I am very, very comfortable living there, having everything to do with Parma. Again, it's the second.
The tallest Italiano in the.
Sì, certo. Yeah, I'm the tallest guy in the city, and but it's different. It's Parma's not like some of like Rome or Milan or some of these other cities that have a lot of tourists. It's a very small community. There's 200,000 people, but it's a very small community. But it's known for its food. Everyone's heard of Parmesan cheese and prosciutto and stuff of that. Very food centric place with a lot of history. There's museums, and you can see art and opera and a lot of things that I was not accustomed to.
Yeah.
And that was part of the beauty for me, is like, I go have these aperitivos and I'm sitting outside of this building, and then like you go over here and you can see like this building's half missing because it got bombed in World War II or something. And it's just, oh, this building's been here since 1400. And I'm like, that's older than my country.
Yeah.
And like,
crazy.
It was insane. And then you see all these cathedrals and duomos and all of that. And it's just such a unique experience that you now understand. Like, I can't put into words, like the feeling, and like, just, it's something you have to, and I have nothing positive things to say about it. I can talk about the refs, and that may be a little bit negative. But overall, it's if you ever have a chance and you play football, American football, you need to take it, because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity.
No question. Which also opened the door to your current job, which is, I'm going to give the initials to it, but you're going to explain to everybody what it is, because it is, I love it. I love this job. I do this, they don't pay me a ton. I do it because of the relationships I get to make, and to help somebody accomplish their dream. I mean, that sounds like I'm whatever, but I love it, because these guys are so kind of naive in a way. I don't want to say naive, but just naive to American football. But so the initials are IPP. You explain to everybody what that is and what you're doing, where you're living, all the stuff that goes around it.
Yeah, so the NFL has a program called the International Player Pathway, and that is taking a foreign-born and raised player out of their home country and basically putting them onto an NFL roster. The NFL has a 90-man roster, they'd be 91. When it cuts down all the way to the 53-man, they can make the team or not. If they don't, they can be added to the practice squad as an exemption. So instead of now it's 15-man, they can be the 16th guy. So it's an opportunity for a lot of international guys to learn the game, especially at that speed and that level, and adjust and adapt, as well as they usually have up to about 3 years to be on a practice squad. So it's an excellent opportunity. On average, we have one guy per year, per class, make it onto an NFL active roster. So, that's pretty good when you're talking about, 4 or 5 years. And most of these kids had never played the sport before, or if they did, it was at a much lower level. So it's an incredible opportunity. It's an incredible experience. There are a lot of crossover athletes. Right now we have one that Coach Hagan's working with that's a Australian rules football player, which is footy. He's a footy guy, mate. But yeah, he's former professional athletes, but he turned pro at 19 years old. Well, We happen to think he'd be a great tight end because he's 6'5", 245, 50 pounds, can run, can catch, can do a lot of things. Never put on a helmet before. Now he can sit there and read a front and tell you a coverage and, do a lot of things. He's been doing it for 2 weeks. So it's incredible to see their growth and to see how they adjust and adapt. But yeah, we have
We go
7.
from football. We go from football 101 or football 1, not even 101, football 0 maybe, to football. We try to get them to football 401 or 422 or whatever as fast as we can in this 10 weeks.
Yeah.
And what Kris does to kind of back up, because we have 13 players here now at the camp. We're at IMG. Kris and I are both at IMG with all the players. There's 13 of them. They're from Nigeria, New Zealand, Australia,
Germany,
France, I think. But Kris goes around. Tell them about the camps, where you do the camps and what you do at the camps and how many guys come to the camp. And they know the NFL is an opportunity.
That's yeah, so we had last year, if you look at 2022, this group, we had a camp in Ghana. A lot of the Nigerian athletes came to this camp. We had Nigerians, Ghanaians, South Africans, a number of, I think there was one guy from Senegal, or Congo one. There are multiple avenues to get there. OC Umenyiora, New York Giant, I think he's in their Hall of Fame. He kind of leads the charge on this right here. OC, if you don't know OC's story, look it up. He was born in the UK, moved to Nigeria, spent 7 years there before he moved to the US in high school, picked up football, went on to have a storied career, won a couple Super Bowls, everything else. OC is very passionate about this. In fact, last week I was in Kenya with him and we did a camp. So
he's from Paris to Kenya to Amsterdam, over here to Florida. Now he's going. I don't know where you're going next, but
crazy. I had to London on Saturday, so I'm going to London, and then I get to go home after that. So on Sunday I'll be in London.
Monday, tell everybody home is
in Paris right now.
Yeah,
so
he's roughing it in Paris. Whatever.
But yeah, so we found all those guys at that camp. So we brought them to London to do an international combine, very similar to what you see. We try to mimic that. It's going to evolve a bit to be more football specific than just a combine. Because again, we need to see if guys can get on a board and, draw up coverages or fronts, or even, from a defensive standpoint, see what they can kind of comprehend and learn. But, we brought over like 40 athletes from all over the world to that combine, including kids from Australia, New Zealand, everything of that nature. And they competed. These were the top 13 guys that came in, and we brought them over here to the U.S. to train, to spend some time, just trying to learn the sport. If they already know the sport, try to teach them at a higher level. We have one kid from France that's played at SMU, a kid from Germany that's played for a number of years, that plays for one of the most storied franchises in all of Europe. So they have some football knowledge and some background, but again, I did it in reverse. We're trying to teach them to go to that level, but teaching them the speed and the strength, which they'll have to experience. It's one of those things where you can tell, but you kind of have to face it and be thrown in the fire before you really understand it.
I get hit in the mouth one time by
Mike Tyson,
American football player in the NFL. That game will change, either the better or the worse. It's going to change. So it'll be good.
And so we're excited. I think we're all excited about the potential.
I love the fact that we bring them in here and we rep them. They get reps and reps and reps, and they get better. And you can see them grow so quickly, and so some of them grow quicker than the others, but it's just so fun. It's super fun.
It's incredibly rewarding, as you were mentioning, like seeing the successes, and that's what it's really about. Because people ask me, and I'm like, I'm very passionate about it because of my experience in Italy. I was welcomed into a culture because of this sport. Yeah. So how do I pay my experience? And same thing happened when I was in the States. I wouldn't have made it to the level at which I played without great coaches or family or people that supported me, or even when I had, I may have been down about like really lifting me up. Now, how do I pay it for it? My time in the NFL, it's come and gone. The door is shut. It's never reopening. But these guys, the door is opening. So how do we prepare them for that? How do we get them ready? How do we teach them? Coach, you've had, I don't even know how many years, dozens of years in the NFL coaching high caliber athletes. How can you share that, fountain of wisdom that you have to prepare these guys for success? And that's the same way I look at it, is how do I give them what I've already experienced and let them, try to ease that transition in some way? Because it's not about me. It's about giving them that opportunity.
That's what I think too. I really think that.
Yeah.
Hey, this show's called Another Rep. And what does that mean to you, another rep? I ask everybody that, so you're not getting off the hook, man.
Yeah. For me, I think another rep just comes back to a very sport mentality. It's, when you think of another rep, it's like, okay, just keep pushing, keep pushing. And that's how my mind goes, is another rep just means when something knocks you down or something doesn't go right, you reestablish the line, or you keep pushing and you get the ship back, straight. Like, that's what it means to me. Is like another rep just means you have another opportunity to push forward, to continue to reach your goals, or to push forward to, continue moving in the right direction towards whatever your goals or your objective is. That's what another rep is to me.
Hey, I love that, man. I'm glad you got another rep. You got another rep out of Georgia to get to Seattle, another one to get to the Titans, another one to get to the next place and the next place, and then Italy. And now you get another rep to get to the IPP, and now you're teaching these guys what another rep's all about. So,
we've been very fortunate. Just like my experience, this program wouldn't go without the guys that came before them, and that's what we preach: protect the program, because that's what it's about. Because someone had to pave that path. Someone had to knock those trees down and show that it's a success. So the Jordan Mailatas, the Jakob Johnsons, the F.A. Obadas are the ones that started this program. Without them, it would not be where we are right now.
Jordan Mailata, and you know what? I'll put a link to his YouTube thing on this. He just signed, what, a $64 million contract?
Yeah.
4 years ago, 5 years ago, he was in Australia
playing rugby.
Yeah. So this program works. This isn't a commercial program, but it's just fun. And I'm glad I get to meet such great guys. You're one of them. All the guys, Will and James and George, that are helping these guys come from all these countries. It's just so fun. They all get here. They don't know each other. They're kind of looking at each other. And then tonight in the lodge where we're staying, they're all singing and dancing. It's the funniest, and it's the best. It's the best, man.
Yeah. That's the part that I really enjoy, is because I don't get to be over here full time like Will and them, because I have to go back, and we have an high school age kids, and so that's where a lot of my attention is focused on. We have 4 Nigerians who put out that same camp at Ghana to bring there, and then we do tours, and we've had a few kids sign Division I scholarships. So it's about paving that path for them as well. So it's a very similar, mentality. But being here reminds me of being in a locker room, and you hear it before you kind of leave the sport. You're going to miss the locker room more than the practices, the games, that sort of thing. So when you're talking about that, like even today, like sitting there, it's almost like the locker room. Like, it's a very small, close-knit group, but they're going through something that they never expected, because most of them didn't play the sport until now, or they may not know much about the sport till now. But here they are, living together, working together, and it's going to form such a close knit, because at the end of the day, they form these bonds because they're going through a similar experience, and you can't explain it. You can just live it. And that's what happens. And that's why, again, we go back to protecting the program. These guys treasure this program once they get out, because this is an experience unlike any other. Most guys like my around the sport. My experience is very different than theirs. So for them, they all have very similar backgrounds. So again, they've formed such close relationships, even though some of them may be from Nigeria or Germany or Australia or, wherever. We've had guys from China and other places throughout the world, Chile. Like, there are guys from all over the world that are able to take part in this, and they're paving the way for everyone else. There's a lot of stories to be told and a lot of to be had on future generations of football players.
And you're helping it get that way. So, hey, man, I appreciate you coming on.
Hey,
We're roommates here. It's been a pleasure meeting you. I know you're heading out Saturday to get back to London and then back to home in France. And
oh yeah,
come visit you in France.
Come on. Hey, I live right there in Paris. It's easy. You know, get up to our London office pretty quickly on a train. So
that's awesome,
man. I enjoy
it.
Hey,
awesome. Thanks for coming on another rep, and love rooming with you. And let's just keep repping, man.
I appreciate it.
All right.
Kris, thanks so much for coming on another rep. I really appreciate it. Let's get over here. Maybe the sun won't hit me in the face so hard. Hey, hit like, hit subscribe, tell all your people, tell all your friends. Let's keep repping. I'm going to keep repping. Kris will keep repping. You keep repping. Let's go. I am officially out.